Everybody's talking about the big AAA horror titles, but horror doesn't need a big budget to be good. And here are some of the best indie and smaller horror titles around. In the interest of transparency, I haven't finished all of these games, or at least not with a good ending. Take this next game. You might have heard about this game and put it aside, like I did, as just another run-of-the-mill horror game, but you'd be mistaken. This game combines the satisfying nature of something like Shipbreaker or Power Wash Simulator with mind-numbing terror, and it works beautifully. As the title might have given away, we work in a morgue, going about our mortuary ways. This means prepping the bodies of the deceased, including doing a lot of things I never thought I'd be doing in a game or otherwise. It's your first day on the job, and you get called in by the boss. Naturally, wanting to please your new employer, you risk life and limb, braving the nighttime dark and wet. When you get there, the boss drops a bomb of epic proportions. A demon has taken a liking to you and attached itself. And to get rid of it, you need to 1. Find out its name, 2. Find the correct body it lives in, and 3. Bind it and burn it.
Be more comforting.
Let the fun commence. This game is nerve-wracking. You as a rookie coroner trying to perform all your coroner duties, all the while being hassled and haunted by ghosts, demons and what have you. One moment you're wheeling a body to cold storage, and the next being transported to an alternate reality. Or you're putting a report in the computer and out of the corner of your eye you see a shadow rushing at you. It's super creepy, and the closer you come to exorcising the demon, the crazier it gets. Believe the hype around this game, it is worth it. The reason I think indie horror is often better than AAA horror, and I love my AAA horror, is that indie studios can take chances and come out with some really fun and creative games. And it often just works. Point in case, Darkwood, one of the weirder games you'll ever play. As a kid, have you ever been lost in the woods with no phone, no adults, just you in the woods with no idea where to go? Darkwood does an excellent job recreating this sense of dread and hopelessness. You're in the Soviet bloc in the late 1980s, and a mysterious forest has engulfed much of the land and is continuing to expand. You're trying to survive. And if you're very lucky, or good at the game, not me, you might even escape the woods. I had to look up if that's even one of the endings, because I never managed. During the day, you scavenge, explore, loot, craft, and fight the weird beings that inhabit the woods. But mostly, you're preparing for nighttime. If you're not near a light source by sunset, things will go bad for you, and your journey will be a short one. Even if you do manage to make it to a light source in time, you best be prepared and barricaded, cause there's things in the dark that will come and drag you off if you're not careful. It's an eerie experience when the sun sets. Everything gets quiet, and you can only see in front of you, which is one of the mechanisms that make this game so hard, but things can be anywhere. The light doesn't illuminate further than a few feet around you, making it even harder, and the night is long. When you finally hear the chorus that indicates the sunrise, it is such a relief. You really have to experience it for yourself. Skills to upgrade, every character is weird and off-putting, and the further you explore into the woods, the worse it all gets. This game is unsettling in the best possible way. Play it and you'll thank me later. Maybe. When you say horror, most people don't think of point-and-click adventures. But yet, some of the earliest horror games in the 90s were point-and-click adventures. Clock Tower, 11th Hour, 7 Guests, and the list goes on. So it's only appropriate that we have one of these on the list. And a scary one at that. We wake up on what seems to be an abandoned spaceship. And we find ourselves without memory, as we so often do in these kind of situations. Without much preamble of any kind, you're left to your own devices. Very much like the point-and-click adventures of old. In fact, it took me quite a while to figure out that this little thing here in the corner is how you open up your inventory. This game is all about exploring and discovering. Use your cursor to hover over something of interest to investigate or use it. Click and double click to walk and run. And those are pretty much all the mechanics you're gonna be using. You'd think that being away from the action with an isometric viewpoint like this would remove much of the tension. But I'm happy to report that the game got me with some well-timed jump scares more often than I like to admit. The grim story is contrasted with some dark humor that had me laughing out loud a few times. Like the time I found a note behind emergency glass where an axe should have been, saying the axe was removed due to budget cuts. The one knock I have against this game is that it all feels a bit slow, especially when you get stuck because you failed to find one obscure little item that you need for a puzzle. In general, the puzzles are well designed, but there are occasions where the game wants you to solve a puzzle one specific way and you're trying a different way and it just won't let you do it. And this can lead to some frustration. Even with this, the story and the atmosphere are good enough to keep me coming back to find out what happened on this abandoned research ship.
There is a sickness in the ancient pitted cobbles of the old road, and on its writhing path you will face viciousness, violence, and perhaps other damnably transcendent terrors.
I know what you're gonna say. That's not a horror game. Well, wait till you experience a party wipe after a 20-minute excursion into a dungeon. Now, that's real horror. Let's just assume for a minute that you've been living under a rock and you don't know what this game is. Because I want to talk about it. This game is so great, I've bought 4 copies of it. One for each platform I had at the time. And you know what's crazy? I still haven't finished the game. Because, aside from the darkest, it's also the hardest dungeon. At heart, it's a dungeon crawler, and you move with your party of 4 heroes, or less due to them falling like flies, through a randomly generated dungeon. Each room can have a random event, loot, a battle, and many more things. But the battles are where this game really shines. What am I talking about? This game is one big shiny diamond. Let me just gush for a bit. The atmosphere of this game is amazing. From the Lovecraftian monsters to the artwork, the way the music swells when the torch is almost extinguished, beautiful. And the narrator just completes the whole thing. He's probably my favorite part of this game. Listen to these lines and delivery, absolute classic.
Continue the onslaught. Destroy them all. Teetering on the brink, facing the abyss.
And then there's the battling itself. This was one of the first games to use position context for your party, meaning different positions, first in line, second in line, third, give your heroes different actions and moves. So a party is not only built around characters, but where you put them to, adding a whole extra layer of strategic depth. And let me tell you about the stress system. There is nothing like battling through a tough dungeon, only to have your most important hero die of a heart attack due to stress. And then the dominoes fall. The others get stressed out too, and then they have heart attacks in turn. It's amazing how well it all works together. What a great game. If you can't for some reason accept The Darkest Dungeon as a horror game, let me make it up to you. This next one will be a treat. This is one of the creepier games I've played in a long time. It absolutely nails the atmosphere. It doesn't do anything inherently different, but what it does very well. Like in Mortuary Assistant, we're being haunted by a demon, the titular Medicine. We wake up, covered in blood, locked in a dark room. And from here on, it's survive or perish. The use of a camera in games isn't particularly new either, but it works very well here. And it's used to reveal paranormal activity, like hidden items, doorways, solving puzzles, and progress through the story. But more than that, its flash is often the only light source available. And it's nerve-wracking to wait for the instant photo to develop to see what you actually took a picture of. It leads to some really cool moments. For example, where I took this picture of a drawing I'd seen earlier to solve this well puzzle, after which taking a picture of this well led me down this creepy crime scene. Here I had to use the radio I picked up in combination with the camera flash to pinpoint the demon. Really cool. Which, let me tell you, almost made me drop my Steam Deck. Haunted house games like these often fall in the repetition trap. You're in the same location with the same jump scares hour after hour. But so far, and again, disclaimer because I haven't finished it yet, this game has done a remarkable job of staying fresh. Locations, even in the house itself, are interesting and varied, and paranormal events are often unexpected and scary. Another absolute recommendation. Who'd ever thought that fishing horror would be a thing? If you paid any attention to gaming in 2023, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Dredge exploded on the scene in March. And for the month of April, this little indie title was all people talked about, even though much bigger horror titles like RE4 Remake had just dropped. Just to catch everybody up on what the big deal is. This game is unlike anything you've ever played before. The majority of the time you'll be sailing around in your little fishing trawler, catching fish. In fun little mini game type ways. You need different equipment for different types of fish, and upgrading your boat is another big mechanic in the game. You can sell your fish at the local market, and while we're in town, why don't we stop by the mayor and see what he's up to. Turns out he has a quest, so let's take care of that. The quests usually take the form of catch me these fish, find me these materials, or go to this location and do this thing. Slowly but surely you uncover the mysterious history behind the small archipelago that you call your new home. And as you might have expected, there's more to this place than meets the eye. Especially fishing at night, which you'll be doing a lot of, is, let's say, interesting, with a whole range of dangers that will be rearing its ugly head. From Lovecraftian deep sea monsters to impenetrable fog and of course your slowly draining sanity, which makes you see things that aren't there and often crash your boat. It's not very scary per se, but it's a whole lot of fun. From the Tetris-like inventory system, the fishing minigames, and of course unraveling the mystery of what the heck's going on here. So this next one is technically not an indie game, not even a little bit, but it is such an underrated game and I wanted to at least give it a little bit of a shout out. Alien Isolation. And yes, I know, I've talked about this game a lot of times now, but only because it's such a labor of love. This game is so chock full of fan service. First of all, it's canon, and it's set between the first two Alien movies, and Century Fox gave them access to all the movie archives and stuff like that to make the best Alien game possible, which it is, by the way. Second of all, this game is the best antagonist in any horror game, not just because it's an alien and terrifying, but because of its AI, and I'm still amazed on how it works. So there's two AIs working in parallel, the Director AI and the Alien AI. The Director AI gives the Alien AI little hints as to where you are. What a jerk. And the Alien AI never exactly knows where you are unless it outright spots you or hears you. But the Alien AI is always looking for us at the guidance of the Director AI, and this becomes a terrifying cat and mouse game between you and the alien, and all you can do is hide. So, what's the story here? The black box of the Nostromo, the spaceship from Alien, has been recovered, and Amanda Ripley, Alan's daughter, wants to know what happened to her mom. She travels to the Sevastopol, the ship that recovered the black box, and quickly discovers that the box came attached with something else, and things unravel from there. This game does such a great job of mimicking the atmosphere of the movies, from the 80s sci-fi look to the malfunctioning robot, and of course the alien itself. This is a beautiful game, but since I talked about this game many times before, I'll stop. There's a lot of excitement or worry, depending on how you look at it, for the new Silent Hill remake. If you can't wait this long, however, and since there's no official release date yet, there is Signalis, a game that's inspired by the greats from the 90s, like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. Like Dredge, this game exploded on the scene from nowhere to critical acclaim, and for good reason. This is another isometric top-down survival game similar to something like Darkwood, although completely different. We wake up on a spaceship without a clue as to what's going on. This seems to be a general theme with these kinds of games. We play as a replica Elster, a type of maintenance android that's looking for her crewmate and has to descend into hell, almost literally. This game is not shy about its many inspirations. From its amazing panic-inducing background noise with the Resident Evil-like safe rooms and item management. The mystery is compelling. The creepy facilities in lockdown, and all the replicas seem to have lost their mind and turned on each other. There's ripped apart bodies and androids everywhere. The pixel art looks gorgeous and is easily one of the prettier ones in recent memory, with sharp backgrounds, nicely animated characters, and a lot of gore. For many of the puzzles, it shifts to a first-person perspective for investigative purposes, and it looks equally nice. As usual, I haven't finished this game yet, but so far, all the praise I've seen for this game is totally deserved. Give it a try. For years now, I've wanted an RV, and I've always loved the idea of van life, where people convert a bus or minivan or something like that into a living space.
Locations impacted. Sectors Delta.
Funny enough, this game gives me a very similar feel, which is a bit odd because it's a horror game. Well, kind of. Pacific Drive is the first game from Ironwood Studios. They classify it as a survival game centered around a station wagon. The premise is simple. The government was once again experimenting and things went wrong. Strange phenomenon, disappearances, you know, the usual. Things escalate, they evacuate the area, and then build a 300-meter tall wall to enclose the area, now called the Olympic Exclusion Zone. You find yourself stuck here, that's when we come in. There's more to it, like for example how there's a psychic link between you and the car, but I'll leave that up to you to discover. For the game itself, it's like nothing you've ever played before, and I know I say that a lot, but I do pick these games for that reason. The game itself is not a truly open world. The map's divided into areas where you do your quests, like gathering materials to upgrade your car, or something to further your escape from the exclusion zone. Traversal, as you might expect, is done by car and on foot, and driving the station wagon is more involved than you might expect. You actually physically have to start the car, put it in drive, and hit the gas. Same goes for the radio and the wipers and all that other stuff. Looking at your mirrors and the cool map computer that sits in your passenger seat all have to be looked at manually. Also important is to keep an eye on your fuel, because you don't want to run out mid-quest. So you'll be doing a lot of siphoning from derelict cars. And I can't tell you how often I've gotten out of my car only to turn around and find it at the bottom of some hill in need of repairs, because I forgot again to put it in park. Speaking of repairs, in the back of your car is a crafting mat, on which you can craft smaller items which you might need in the field, like repair kits for your car, and believe me, there's a lot that can go wrong, like flat tires, lights, spark plugs, you name it, but also, for example, health kits. Being out in the exclusion zone is dangerous, and there's a lot of weird stuff out there, and after a little while, what they call the instability starts to spread, which will hurt both you and your vehicle, and at this point it's time to try and make a back back to your garage, your base of operations, and my favorite part of the game. The garage is where you will spend a large part of your game. Here you can make upgrades and tinker with your car. And let me tell you, there are a large amount of upgrades to be done. Appearance options, better tires, upgraded engines, you name it. It's also a lot of fun to craft the item and then quote-unquote physically install the part. Just a word of warning, this doesn't run great on the Steam Deck. With most settings turned down, I was only able to get 20 to 30 frames per second, depending on where I was. It's not a particularly fast game, so it didn't bother me, but I could see how other people would be more critical.
Misery. Is that what you said?
I played this game years ago and I was surprised by how good it was, and it's perfect for this list. So I picked it up again for this video and it drew me right back in. This one isn't going to be for everyone. It's a grim game and it's quite slow, to be honest. But hang in there, get invested in the story, it is worth it. The Cat Lady is a supernatural story of depression, loneliness, and just general hardships of life. When you boot up the game, the first thing you'll notice are the incredibly disjointed graphics. Susan Edgeworth, our brave protagonist, looks like she's cut out of a newspaper and pasted onto an MS Paint slide. Animations look equally crude and it's all bound together with washed out grey tones, with certain colors brightly standing out. The art style perfectly indicates what kind of a game you're about to be playing. It's going to be weird, grim, cruel, and shocking. Susan is sent back into the world by the Queen of Maggot after a failed self-deletion attempt and is given the task of hunting down 5 parasites. Evil men and women that need to be brought to justice. You're given one advantage: immortality. You can't die. You'll be bringing these parasites to justice in a 2D world, moving left to right and back again, one static background at a time, with only your wits to guide you. This sounds boring, and like I mentioned, this game can be quite slow at times, with lots of dialogue to get through, but also the pacing of this game is great. There's a lot of downtime where you'll be talking to people, collecting items, solving puzzles, and then suddenly something shocking happens. And I mean, this game goes for shocks. Not just by gore, but there's just some genuinely disturbing stuff in this game. I don't want to give too much away, but if this looks at all interesting to you, give it a try. In most of these games, we play as the good guy. So we figured it's time to add a little variety with Carry On, another game from Team 17. These guys only release interesting and different games. So we just talked about the tense cat and mouse game in Alien Isolation, but the roles in this game are reversed. This time, you'll be the one hunting and skulking through the fence and air ducts, grabbing and devouring helpless scientists and soldiers alike. No longer some helpless, fragile human. Instead was something more akin to a combination of the Blob and the Thing. And this is a weird one. If there's anything they nailed in this game, it is the movement. It feels perfect. If monsters could do ballet, I think this would be it. It's responsive and fluid and constantly makes me want to go whoosh when I dive into another vent out of sight of an unsuspecting scientist. As we progress, a cute blob monster evolves and learns different abilities to wreak havoc and traverse. For example, a web-like substance you can shoot from your appendages, a claw/teeth attack you can use to hack up more resistant enemies, and even the ability to control and puppeteer humans. And it all looks deliciously gruesome, with lots of pixel gore and flashy sounds. Even the soundtrack is perfect and reminds me a lot of the grim music from Alien. It's not a long game and you can finish it in 4 to 5 hours, but it is totally worth it. And that's all I have for today. Let me know what your favorite indie horror games are. I am always looking for something good to play, and check out this video to see why Resident Evil 7 is the best in the series, and I hope to see you in the next one.